more local partnerships and matches that will help to hopefully sustain this program. But you have so many people out there who tell me all the reasons why poor children can't learn and why black and brown children can't learn. But when I go visit these schools, when I talk to young people and they talk about what the school was like pre-turnaround a year or 2 or 3 years ago compared to today, again, all these are works in progress. It is amazing. It is amazing to see what great teachers and great principals and involved parents in a real community can do. So I urge all of you to stay the course. Long way to go, but to see graduation rates up, to see dropout rates down, to see dropout factories decrease by about 20, 25%. These are huge, huge accomplishments that most of the pundits, most of the so-called experts 2 or 3 years ago would have said it was impossible. Just can't do it. Poverty's destiny, these kids of color can't learn, all kinds of, a host of reasons why people give you excuses why this work can't go on. Please stay the course. Please keep pushing. One small piece that we want to do, where's Wendy Spencer? I know Wendy came up. Wendy's here in the back. I know she talked earlier. Wendy's just been an amazing, amazing partner with AmeriCorps. We're always trying to think about how we can double down, how we can invest more in things like school turnaround. So really, she should be making this announcement, not me, but thanks to her leadership and the creativity of her team and good ideas that come from actually many of you in this conference. These ideas did not come from me and my team. You guys brought them to us. We want to collectively invest about $15 million as a matching grant fund to create an AmeriCorps school turnaround program. And there's lots of information on her website. Applications will be due in about 2 months, April 23rd. We want to partner with nonprofits and social service agencies and folks who at the local level want to stay in these schools for the long haul. And the more we have, again, not just great teachers and great mentors, but social workers, young people before school, after school, weekends, home visits, removing every obstacle, these young people being successful. I'm just a huge fan of the AmeriCorps program. Generally, they're already doing great work in many of our disadvantaged communities, but to have a targeted program focused exclusively on the school turnaround effort, I think will hopefully be another step in this evolution. Wendy, I just want to thank you so much for your leadership and partnership. Really, really appreciate it. 3 other quick issues, then I want to open it up to sort of go beyond just what we're trying to do in education. One, obviously, that we're dealing with a huge amount of time this week is the whole issue of sequestration. And whatever you can do to talk to your political leaders across, again, in a bipartisan way, and let them know how destructive this will be. And it's actually just mind-boggling to me that with all the real battles that you guys are facing in real schools and real communities every single day, that Washington just creates a crisis, manufactures a crisis. And the costs to schools and to children and teachers and families are very, very real. We could see as many as 70,000 children lose access to Head Start. We could see as many as 40,000 teachers laid off. We have no discretion in terms of how these cuts are made. You guys know the federal money is usually just 8 to 10% of school districts' budgets, but where do we invest heavily? We invest most heavily with disadvantaged, with vulnerable populations. So this is Title I children, this is children, English language learners, this is homeless children, this is children with special needs, and it's going to be as much as $2.8 billion that's just going to disappear. And again, it goes way beyond education, but whatever you guys can do to have your voices heard collectively so that Congress doesn't walk down this path. And I'm still trying to figure out what sequester means. I'm not quite sure what the definition is. But I know it was set up because folks realized how dysfunctional Congress was. It was set up to be so bad, so painful for all sides, that it would force people to come together and work. And somehow, despite that, it's now become acceptable here in Washington that sequestration actually happened. Just makes no sense whatsoever. So happy to take questions on the severity of the impact. Not all of this will be felt tomorrow and next week, but over the next couple months, as we move into the next school year, this is just going to hurt the kids and the families and communities that need the most help. And the fact that, again, this is a purely man-made, this is not a hurricane, this is not something else. It's a man-made crisis in Washington. It's not why I came to Washington. It's not why the president came to Washington. We just want to challenge people in Congress to compromise, to find common ground. No one ever gets everything you want, but to be just so intransigent that you won't talk to the other side simply doesn't make sense to me. And this is time is of the essence now. So please have your voices heard there. A couple more that I'm actually more optimistic on. One, we're working again across many agencies on the issue of immigration. What we have not done for our children who have been here since they were often 4 months, 5 months, 6 years old is absolutely crazy to me. I'm a huge supporter of the DREAM Act. It's one of the things I desperately wish we had gotten passed in the first term. That didn't happen. You are starting to see some bipartisan consensus start to come behind this. And those of you that work in these communities know so many of our children who have come to this country drop out of high school not because it's too hard, but because they know they don't have the chance to go to college. And we lose some of the best and brightest because they're so discouraged about the lack of opportunity ahead of them. And this isn't, for me, the right thing for these children and their families. This is the right thing for our country. These young people are the future entrepreneurs. They're the future innovators. They're the future job creators. And to sort of marginalize them on the outskirts of society and not give them the chance to go on to get a higher education makes no sense whatsoever. I'm really hopeful, again, with your voices being heard over the next couple months, we can fundamentally break through on this critically important issue. The second big one, again, these are the communities that so many of us are focused on, is we have areas of just concentrated poverty in this country. And we know we need great schools. We know we need great teachers. We know we need great principals. Nothing's more important. But we also have to wrap around services around those entire communities if we're going to make a real difference in our poorest areas. What Jeffrey Canada has done in the Harlem Children's Zone and a few other models around the country has been hugely influential in my thinking. And we're working with the Department of Agriculture in rural areas, with HHS around early learning, with Department of Labor around jobs, with HUD around housing, to think through what we can do collectively to create opportunities cradle to career for babies, for children, for parents, for businesses to move in these communities so that we can fundamentally tackle these in a holistic way. The President talked about this in the State of the Union, about the opportunity agenda. We're going to try and get significant resources, new resources from Congress to put behind this. Again, those of you working the front lines every day can help to inform where we go there. But if we could take 20 communities, urban, rural, whatever they might be, bring all of our resources to bear behind it, we think we have a chance to fundamentally change the life chances, not just of children in those communities, but of an entire area, entire region. So stay tuned on that, but give us your best thinking, and really hopeful we can get Congress to unite behind that. The final thing I'll talk about that's just another really personal one is how we reduce gun violence. And coming from Chicago, where we lost one child every 2 weeks to gun violence, just a devastating toll is staggering. I spent last Thursday with the Vice President in Connecticut. We met for a couple hours with families from the Sandy Hook victims, the massacre there, also meeting with other family members who had lost their loved ones due to gun violence throughout Connecticut. And what we're seeing around the country, to me, just, again, makes no sense. Post-Sandy Hook, just in the past 2 months or so, we've had another 2,000 people die due to gun violence in this nation, 2,000. So the rate of loss has not slowed whatsoever. And if you read Alex Kotlowitz's piece in the New York Times yesterday, he's a good friend and someone I have tremendous respect for. Something I've seen all my life is obviously not just families that are devastated, but it's entire communities. And when classes and when neighbors lose children, they start to, it changes how they think. It changes their perception of what they can do long term. So we have to take this on as a nation in a holistic way. We have to reduce gun violence. We have to talk about mental health. We have to talk about parents and community members and churches and faith-based institutions stepping up. We have to talk about movies and video games and other things like that. But we can't just simply do this in a piecemeal way, and we can't allow the status quo to continue where we are losing so many innocent children every single year. It's just... If you look at the rate, the loss of life of our children versus our soldiers who are fighting wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the craziness, the insanity of this becomes that much more clear. So we're going to continue to work very, very hard. The President, happy to take questions on all of this. The President, the Vice President, myself, Eric Holder, Kathleen Sebelius, Janet Napolitano, all of us want to do everything we can do to make sure that this status quo is challenged. And there'll be lots of debate about how we get there, and that's a very, very fair debate. What I've said repeatedly is there's two simple goals that I want. I want a lot fewer children being killed, and I want a lot fewer children living in fear every single day. And I think 99.9% of us can agree on those goals. if we can agree on those goals, we can figure out how we move forward together, and we're committed to doing that. So I'll stop there. Lots going on, lots of moving parts. The sequester stuff right now is very, very tough. But big picture, stepping back, I'm amazingly excited about where we can go. I see the progress the country is making. I see how much potential we have to still get better. I think this play in early childhood education is the best investment we can make for the long haul. And again, with all of your hard work and leadership and challenging us to be a good partner, I couldn't be more excited about what we can do over the next 3 to 4 years. So thank you so much, and look forward to your questions. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. We have these stools so I don't look so short. And I have to tell you...
I'm shrinking every day, don't you worry.
I'm ahead of you on that, I fear. And I started lower. You kind of wrecked this because you answered all the questions before I asked them. So I do have some questions from the audience. In fact, we have a huge stack of questions here. We picked out a few that we thought would help illuminate and maybe get into a couple areas that you weren't able to get into. So President Obama speaks about the corrective action necessary to achieve the goals that we want for our children. Can you speak to your vision for school community partnerships that support collective action at the school site?
Schools can't do this work by themselves. And again, we need, I've said it before, great teachers, great principals, but where schools are islands, where schools, sweep their children out the door at 2:30 and onto the streets, it's simply not good enough. And I always say that these, we're all struggling. These are tough, tough economic times. We have 100,000 schools in this country. Every school has classrooms, they have libraries, many have computer labs, they all have gyms, some have swimming pools. They don't belong to me or to the principal or to the union or to the teachers, they belong to the community. And we should really be opening these doors. And we're just a very different vision of what a school can be. And where schools truly become the hearts, the hubs of community life and family life, then I become very optimistic about where children can go. So the idea of schools being open 12, 13, 14 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year is just a very, very different vision. And bringing in the nonprofit partners and social service agencies and faith-based institutions and community colleges and having a range of programming, academic enrichment being at the core for students, but dance and drama and art and music and chess and yearbook and robotics and GED programs. We served tens of thousands of kids in Chicago 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because we worried about them not eating at night. When schools truly become the hearts of the neighborhood, then great things happen for kids. When we did this in Chicago, one thing I understood many of the benefits. The one I didn't fully understand at all, didn't appreciate until we saw the data, is in so many urban areas, our mobility rates are too high. Kids are moving all the time because parents are, frankly, just one step ahead of the landlord and bouncing from place to place. What we found in our schools that became community centers, poverty rate didn't change. It was still 97, 98, 99%, but mobility went down. Really, really important. Mobility went down that despite the chaos and whatever's going on in the students' parents' lives, they were connected to that school in a different way and found a way to keep coming back there. That is a big deal. If we can reduce mobility rates, we have a chance to truly educate our kids.
Awesome. So I don't know if it was in your briefing papers here, but more than 10% of the participants in this summit are actually young people, and we're trying to really hear the voice and take the guidance of young people. So I have a couple of questions here that come from some of the youth tables. One is, how has adversity shaped you as the person you are today and the leader you are today?
Well, I've failed lots of times at lots of things, created more than my own sense of adversity. And I think it is true, people, sort of a cliche that is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think trying lots of different stuff, and it's something I'm actually more and more interested in, sort of the non-cognitive side of stuff, of how we help instill in students a sense of resilience and grit. And I think in part due to growing up on the streets of the South Side in Chicago and learning to negotiate that world, you learn some pretty valuable life lessons. How we help to instill an ability to deal with adversity is something I think we need to get much more sophisticated about. I'm very, very interested. One little thing we tried at home with my wife and I have 2 young kids, a 5th grader and a 3rd graders. We'll try and ask them at dinner, what did you fail at today? Which is sort of a non-traditional question, but trying to get them to stretch. And it's really okay to fail, and you have to, you know, if you're doing everything that's safe and you're successful at everything, it really limits you. So I've had more than my share of adversity and failure, and I think it does, if anything, it gives you a greater sense of what is possible and where you can go, and for me, a real sense of urgency about how fast we have to get there.
The other question we had from young people is, how can the voice of young people be heard effectively inside the Department of Education? We know you're busy. It's a big bureaucracy. How do you hear the voice of your customers?
Yeah, well, that's hugely important. Please challenge us to be good partners. So I try and do that in a number of ways. Every school visit I go on, I'm usually in a couple schools a week. I'll try and formally sit down with students, but also grab them in the hallways and grab them in between. And kids will tell you the truth. You know, adults will often give you this, you know, the dog and pony show. But kids will tell you what's working and what's not. And frankly, so much of my enthusiasm about the school turnaround work is not what I hear from the adults, it's what I hear from young people. And you know, one young man said, you know, Arnie, this is night and day. It's, you know, best thing that ever happened. You know, sense of discipline, culture, folks care about us. But he said, you know what, I wish you had done it 2 years earlier. A bunch more of my friends would be here. And it's those kinds of statements that are really profound. So visiting schools, we try and do that. I bring in groups of students every single month to meet with me on a specific topic, whether it's dreamers, whether it's future farmers of America, whether it's folks involved in community colleges, whether it's young people who've been incarcerated and now back out trying to get their lives together. So, I mean, we're all busy, but if something's important, you find time for it. So I try to, you know, just build time in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I'm sure there's more that me and my team can be doing, and please challenge us to do that.
Fair enough. Going back to what you said about the social-emotional, we had a really good session, actually 2 good sessions on it this morning, and we agree with you that it's important. We all need to explore more about it. And also Charlene's comments about that little thing at the NBA and the All-Star game and all that. So there's a question here about recent studies tell us that play, recess, movement, etc., have huge social-emotional benefits for young people, yet recess is disappearing in too many places. What do you think about this, and is there anything that the administration should be doing, or is there anything that people in this audience could be doing to focus on that?
A couple answers. First of all, stay tuned, and the First Lady and I, Michelle Obama, are actually going to Chicago on Thursday to talk very specifically about this. This is one that's very, very personal for me. That, you know, I was one of those young boys. If I had to sit still for 6 hours a day, I was pretty tough on my teachers. But if I had recess, if I had PE, one to look forward to, I could sit still a little bit longer, and then I could run around and burn out some energy and come back. And I always say, in education, we fight so many of the wrong battles and make false choices. We fight college versus careers. It's got to be both and. And we fight academic success versus, recess and play and physical activity. It's got to be both and. In fact, all the academic research, all the research shows that when students are active, when they're physically healthy, when they're learning to play and learning those socialization skills, they do better academically. And so it's how we get people to think differently. Now, you know, money is short, every budget's, you know, tight, school days are too short, but you think about, you know, before school, recess, lunch, PE, after school, there's all kinds of windows in which young people can be physically active, and where you see teachers and principals being really creative in the use of time and, you know, teaching multiplication tables with kids doing jumping jacks and rapping and doing other things. Guess what? The kids are more engaged in learning and do better. So we have to get past this false dichotomy. It's got to be both and. You know, social and emotional development, play, and you know, physical, being physically active, and then academically you can concentrate and do better. So we have to build that culture. We want to do more there. My wife's a former PE teacher who works for a nonprofit that builds playgrounds now. So this is a frequent topic in our household.
Cool. Last question. I'm sensitive to the fact that people have been here for a long time and you have to go. So let me just ask you one question in a different dimension. There's a perception about career and technical education that makes it feel like old-fashioned voc ed, right? How do we collectively, you from your perch and everyone here from their perch, work to change that perception?
Yeah, so I go back to what I just started. There's been this, you know, college versus career debate, which is just, again, absolutely the wrong fight to be having. And in fact, the skill sets needed for college and careers are getting more and more identical. And for me, it's not about tracking kids or saying you're college material, you're not. It's about giving young people choices. And we have to invest in high-quality career and technical education. We have to make sure it's not for one group of students, but for every single child. The President talked about this pretty significantly in the State of the Union. We want to come back, hopefully with significant new dollars to invest behind high schools that get this in a really interesting way. And just last Thursday, I was in Connecticut dealing with the victims of the Sandy Hook Massacre. Friday, I went to this amazing school, the Harbor School in New York City, where you have to take a ferry to the school. The kids are doing all this amazing work, marine biology and a ton of other stuff, and you have no idea who's thinking about college and who's thinking about careers right there in the waterfront. And they're blending it seamlessly. And you have kids thinking about Ivy League schools, and you have young people thinking about going to work and making a really good wage for a long time the day after they graduate from high school. And so I think collectively there should be zero stigma. There are lots of great high-wage, high-skilled jobs out there today that can't go overseas, that can't be exported. We need a lot more of our young people in this country and public school students having access to those jobs. Just really quickly, New York example, they said all the jobs up and down the waterway there, 90% of them right now are going to people from other countries because they can't find, and here you have the New York City public schools, the biggest school system in the country, and they're just saying, okay, we should be part of the solution. We should be producing the talent, and they're starting to do that. The ferry that I had to take to visit the school, the ferry was piloted by a recent graduate of the high school. That's the kind of thing we want to see.
Fabulous. I want to thank you for being here today, for your partnership and really the whole department's partnership through this campaign. You know the new numbers, they're encouraging, and yet, as you said, much work to be done. So we look forward to doing that with you in the days and weeks and months to come.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks for the hard work. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. All right. All right, everybody, guess what? We get a break. Let's go have a break. The Target Lounge is open right behind here, and at 2:45, the concurrent session will start. Thanks, everyone.
So we make that very explicit. I mean, that is what we do. We bring kids back to school that have already dropped out.
To be honest, I don't quite feel successful yet. I'm moving in the right direction, though. Because I am lucky to have found the right